Hello, I'm Chris Harbard.
And I'm Mary Sia.
Welcome to the latest of our online speaker series from Southwest Wings. This is a special extra holiday edition. And today we're thrilled to have with us someone I'm sure many of you will recognize. He is the owner and the familiar, friendly face of Jay's Bird Barn.
Yeah.
He's coming to us live from his shop in Prescott, Arizona, and there is no one more suited to telling us all about the little intricacies to do with birding optics, the important binoculars and telescopes which we all rely on for seeing those wonderful birds so clearly.
Yes.
Now, at the end of the talk, we will be having our question and answers. So if you do have any queries, please save them. And there is a question and answer feature on Zoom. So if you can type your question in then, we will respond to all of those at the very end of the talk. So without further ado, over to you, Eric.
Thank you. Well, welcome. I'd like to welcome all of the participants that are watching online. This is a class that I have taught several times at the Southwest Wings Birding Festival in Sierra Vista at Cochise College. And of course, that didn't happen this year, which was very disappointing to all of us. So I'm happy that I have the opportunity today to present the same class. We basically have titled it All About Optics. And I really want today's discussion to be educational. While I own retail stores and I sell both Swarovski binoculars and scopes and Vortex binoculars and scopes and accessories like tripods, I don't want this to be a selling piece. If you are interested after this presentation in buying binoculars, I invite you to call me. I'll go ahead and give you the phone number now, and I'll give it at the end of the presentation. So the phone number for Jay's Bird Barn in Prescott, Arizona is 928-443-5900. And I invite you to call and speak to me, and we can talk about optics personally if that's something that you want to pursue individually on your own. But we're going to jump right into the educational piece of optics today. And what I'm hoping to do is to teach you about all the different specifications and the design features that make binoculars different from one another. It's interesting, as we work with customers in our store and as they are looking at binoculars, one of the first questions we get is, why is there a big difference in price? We have binoculars as low as about $200. We have binoculars up to $3,000. And their question is, what's the difference? Why is there such a difference in price? Well, certainly some of it has to do with who the manufacturer is, where it's manufactured, but most of it has to do with the quality of the products, the engineering, the design, the quality of the glass, the lenses that are being used, the lens coatings. But we're going to talk about those specifications. So when you have a pair of binocular, usually on the center focus wheel, which is right in the middle where you focus for distance, there will be a series of numbers on that focus wheel. So for example, the pair that I'm holding today, it says 10X, and then it says 42. The first number is always your magnification. So this means this particular pair that I'm holding is 10 power, meaning any object that I look at with this pair of binoculars will be 10 times closer and 10 times larger than the naked eye. The second number in this example is 42. That measurement is a measurement of the objective lens, which is the lens where the light comes in. And in this example, it is 42 millimeters across or wide, okay? So 10 by 42 are the specifications for this pair. We're gonna talk about why is an 8 power better than a 10 power? Why is a 10 power better than an 8 power? Or a 12 power or a 15 power? Or why is a 42 superior to a 32? Or why is a 56 better? Or why is it not better? The one thing I would like to point out, when you're purchasing binoculars, it's really a personal decision. It's not like, it's kind of like buying shoes, for example. Any pair of shoes that I buy probably aren't going to fit you. Maybe the pair of binoculars you buy wouldn't fit my needs. Maybe it wouldn't fit my hand structure, my facial structure. Maybe I'm not interested in the weight or the size or the magnification. And so it's a very personal decision. And it's not like there's one pair of binoculars that's going to meet everybody's needs. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the different features. This particular pair that I'm holding right now happens to be a 12 by 50. So that means it has 12 power magnification. So any object I look at with this pair of binoculars compared to the 10 is going to be 20% closer than the 10 because it has 20% more magnification. 12 power is going to be 12 times closer, 12 times larger. Interestingly, on this pair, it has a 50 millimeter objective lens compared to the 42. So you can probably see, I'm hoping you can see the dramatic difference in the size of the objective lenses. So what is the purpose of the objective lens? Well, the primary purpose is light gathering. The larger the objective lens, so for example, a 50 versus a 42, that means that 50 millimeter objective lens is going to gather more light than a 42 millimeter objective lens, okay? So under varying conditions where you're birding, you might need more light gathering capacity or capability. For example, I have traveled and birded in tropical places. I've gone to Brazil, I've gone to Guatemala, I've gone to Belize or Costa Rica. Well, when you're in a canopy situation where you're in an understory and you have filtered light because of the shade of the tropical environment, light gathering becomes an issue. And if you have a small pair, so for example, this is a very, very tiny pair. I hope you can see that well. It has a 25 millimeter objective lens. Compare the objective lens sizes. A huge difference in the objective lens size. Under low light conditions, something like a 25 millimeter objective is not going to be adequate. It's not going to deliver enough light to your pupil. So let's say you travel, and I know nobody's traveling very much right now, but let's say you do some birding in the tropics, and so light gathering is an issue. Then you might want to consider purchasing or having a pair of binoculars that has a larger objective lens for light gathering. Now, there are a couple of factors that affect light gathering. One of them is magnification. Interestingly enough, every time you increase the magnification, like if you go from an 8 power to a 10 power or 10 power to a 12 or 12 to a 15 power, every time you increase magnification, you lose light gathering capability. So interestingly enough, even if you had two identical sized objective lenses, like if you had an 8 power by 42 and a 10 power by 42, the 8 power, the lower magnification, will deliver more light to your pupil than the 10 power with the same sized objective lens. I hope I made that clear. So again, if light gathering is important, you might consider less magnification. So there are three primary factors that are influenced or affected when you increase magnification. We've already mentioned light gathering. The second one is field of view. What you see from left to right is a common terminology of field of view. The higher the magnification, the narrower your field of view gets, okay? So with an 8 power, you have a very generous field of view. 10 power, a little narrower, 12 power, narrower. And so if you're looking at objects that are fairly close, it might be harder to get on the bird as quickly because you have a very narrow field of view that you're looking at. The other factor that is influenced by increasing magnification is the jiggle factor. Sometimes as we get older, we develop a little bit of, and the amount of magnification of your pair of binoculars will affect how steady your image is. 8 power will provide the most stable image. 10 power will be a little more jiggly, 12 power even more jiggly. Now, having said that, you lose magnification, you lose field of view, or pardon me, you lose light gathering, not magnification. You lose the steadiness as you increase magnification. You might get the impression that I'm saying lower magnification is better. I'm not, I'm just educating. If you're steady, maybe you could use a 10 power or a 12. I personally use a 12 power. That might sound surprising, but I like the added magnification that a 12 power gives me compared to an 8 or a 10 power. So let's talk a little bit about magnification for a minute. When you go from an 8 power to a 10 power, the increase in magnification is 25%. So that's significant. Let me give you an example of that. So let's say, for example, you're standing side by side with somebody and they're using 8 power and you're using 10 power. Well, if you're each looking at the same object, let's say it's 100 feet away, for the person with an 8 power binocular, that object appears as 100 feet away. But since you have 25% more magnification, that object appears only 75 feet away to you because you have 25% more magnification. The same can be said if you go from 10 to 12. If the person has a 10 and you have a 12, for them, that object's going to be 100 feet away, but with a 12, it's going to be 80 feet away. If you have 20 power to a 12 power, that's a difference of 50% magnification. So that's significant. When I'm using my 50s and I'm birding with somebody who has 8, that object is half as close to me as it is to them. So, you know, again, an object 100 feet away looks like 100 feet away to them. It's only 50 feet away from me because I have 50% more magnification with my 12 powers. So there's pros and cons. I don't ever want to give the impression that 8s are better or 10s are better or 12s are better. They're not, they're different. That's all, they're just different. And so you need to decide what is more important to you. Is magnification more important? Is steadiness more important? Is light gathering more important? Is field view more important? New birders especially have a hard time getting on birds. When they raise their binoculars to their eyes, they don't quite have the ability yet to be spot on. So for example, they pick up the binoculars and they're moving around like this, trying to find the bird. So a wider field of view is better for a new birder, but experienced birders typically don't need to worry about field of view because they can pick up their binoculars and they get right on the object very, very quickly. So those are just some things to consider, that they're just differences. Neither of them are better than the other. So we talked a little bit about the objective lens. This is where the light is gathered. Let's talk a little bit about the ocular lens. So the ocular lens is where you put your eye, of course, okay? And this is where the magnification occurs. The ocular lens is the piece of glass that determines if it's an 8 power or a 10 power or 12 power or any other magnification. So that's the primary function of the ocular lens is magnification, whereas the objective lens is light gathering. Now, when you start using binoculars, there are several adjustments that need to occur. Number one, the light that is being gathered by the objective lens exits the ocular lens and it should hit you on your pupil. It should hit you squarely on your pupil. Well, we all have different facial structures. Some people have narrow faces, some people have broader faces. So the distance between our pupils varies between all of us. And so binoculars have a hinge, of course, that allows you to either crimp the binoculars together or spread the binoculars farther apart. And that's to adjust for what's called the interpupillary distance, the distance between your pupils. It's very important when you're using binoculars that you adjust the interpupillary distance so that the light that is exiting the ocular lens is hitting your pupil, both pupils. If you have them too close, then the light's going to be hitting you in here. If you have them spread apart too far, the light's going to be hitting you over here, and you're not going to have a good quality image. You're going to be seeing shadows and dark circles. So that's that adjustment. Another adjustment when using binoculars is to accommodate whether you're wearing eyeglasses or not. Most binoculars have a feature where you can simply roll up the eye cups or roll down the eye cups to adjust whether you're wearing binoculars or not. Pardon me, glasses. I said that wrong. So for example, if you do not wear eyeglasses, you want to have the eye cups rolled up. You want them fully extended, probably. And that gives you what's called eye relief. When the light that the binocular gathers exits this ocular lens, it has to come to a focal point. You might remember when you were a kid and you were using a magnifying glass and you're trying to harness the sun's rays, if you held the magnifying glass away from the distance that you were looking at, there was a sweet spot. There was a certain space where you would get a concentrated beam of light That's the same principle with the binoculars. The light exiting your ocular lens has to come to a focal point. If you pull right up to the lens, the image has not had the opportunity to come to a focal point yet. Your eye needs to be generally between 15 and 18 millimeters away from the lens. So if you're wearing eyeglasses, your eyeglasses afford you that distance. You don't need to mess with these. But if you're not wearing glasses, you'll probably want to roll the eye cups up to give you that 15 to 18 millimeters distance or separation from the lens to your pupil. That gives the image an opportunity to come to a focal point. So that's an important adjustment. Now again, because people have different facial structures, just like we have different distance between our pupils, you might find that even if without wearing glasses or even with eyeglasses, that you might want to use some of the variable settings. Like this particular pair, which is a Vortex product, has 3 settings. There's 1, 2, 3. And so you might play with that and find out which setting works best for you. The goal is when you're looking through the binoculars, you should never experience what you see on Hollywood. You know, in Hollywood, when they show somebody looking through binoculars and they show you what they're seeing, they always show you 2 different images. Obviously, that is not accurate. That is not what you should ever see. You should see one image. Both eyes should combine into one image, and you shouldn't see any ringing, shadowing, or circles, okay? So the way to eliminate that is your interpupillary distance and your eye relief, okay? So if you have questions about that, we can answer those questions at the end. So we've talked about the ocular lens, we've talked about the objective lens, we've talked about interpupillary distance, and we've talked about eye relief for eyeglass wearers versus non-eyeglass wearers. Let's talk real quickly for those who do not wear glasses, who don't have correct vision. Oftentimes, most people, there's a slight difference between your right eye and your left eye. For example, one eye might be 20/20 and one eye might be 20/40. Well, you have a single center focusing wheel. If you only use your focusing wheel for distance and you don't make an adjustment for the difference between your vision, 20/20 versus 20/40, then when you focus the center focus wheel, only one eye will be crisp and sharply focused, and the other eye will slightly be off because you haven't maybe adjusted what's called the diopter setting. So all binoculars come with the ability to make an adjustment for your right eye and left eye, and that's called the diopter setting. So we're going to talk about that for a few minutes. Depending whether what brand you use, like most Vortex products, the diopter setting is going to be on the right eyepiece. It's a focus wheel that turns, and hopefully you can see that a little bit, but this wheel right here turns, and that adjusts for the right eye and left eye. With most Swarovski products, that adjustment is going to be underneath your center focus wheel. So you have your focus wheel here, and this piece pulls up, and then it's calibrated, and that allows you to adjust your diopter setting. So let's talk about how to do that. When you get a new pair of binoculars, or if you haven't adjusted your diopter setting maybe for a couple of years, and maybe your eyes have changed, which happens over time, it's good to periodically adjust your diopter setting. Make sure it's still set correctly for the difference between your right eye and your left eye. The way to do that is to close your right eye or cover the objective lens, cover it. And with the left eye only, you're going to use the center focus wheel, okay? And so you want to pick an object that's kind of a mid distance, not really close, not really far away. So what you do is, using your binoculars, left eye only, you focus with the center focus wheel. And once you have it perfectly focused, then you switch. You close your left eye and you pull out your diopter setting or touch the ring on the right eyepiece. And with the right eye, you focus using the diopter setting. And once you get your right eye perfectly sharp, then you lock it in. You push in or you set your diopter setting. This is a one-time adjustment. you should only have to do this maybe once a year. And now, once you've set your diopter, your right eye and left eye are perfectly focused. Whether you're looking at something 5 feet away or 500 feet away, they should be equally focused. Now, word of caution. Let's say you only have one pair of binoculars between a couple, a husband and wife, or 2 people birding together. Well, guess what? Your diopter setting would probably be different than their diopter setting. So if you're sharing binoculars with somebody, it's a good idea to determine what your diopter trade or share, that you can quickly just make the adjustment by just turning it and locking it without having to do left eye first, right eye first. By then the bird would be gone. So just a word of caution, if you're sharing binoculars, it's a little more challenging because the diopter setting would be different for each of you. Okay. We talked a little bit about the center focus wheel because it's also where you do the diopter setting, but the center focus wheel is strictly for distance. Okay. So we talked about field of view, but there's also depth of view. Depth of view deals with distance away from you, not left to right. So obviously your center focus wheel is always for distance. A good pair of binoculars should focus within 5 or 6 feet. So you should have close focus capability. And then of course it should go out to infinity. So just a word of information on the close focus and the center focus wheel. We talked a little bit about light gathering and under different birding conditions. I find that most of our customers in the store, they use their binoculars at home more than anywhere. So when you're trying to determine whether you need more light gathering or not, I think it's good to determine, where do I use my binoculars the most? Am I using it in the comfort of my home? Am I just looking out the window? Am I more of a field birder? I'm out in the field, or I travel internationally. Those factors could influence what kind of binoculars you would buy. It's not uncommon for a lot of our customers to have 2 pair of binoculars. They have kind of a beater pair that they keep in the glove box, that they keep in the car, that they have available to them when they're out and about. But then they have their better pair that they keep on the windowsill, on the coffee table, the kitchen nook. And when they do some field birding, they'll actually take those with them when they go do their field birding. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to have, a backup pair, certainly. We've already talked about magnification. We've talked about field of view. Depth of field is really important, that your binocular has kind of like coarse focus and fine focus. When you're transitioning from looking at an object that is close to an object that is far away, you might have to turn your focus wheel a lot to accommodate for that big difference in distance. However, once you get close to that object with your focusing, then you should be able to fine tune or binoculars are much more sensitive than others. For example, if you're looking at something 25 feet away and then you transition to looking something 30 feet away, you might not have to adjust your focus wheel very much at all, because there's going to be a certain amount of depth of field in your fine focusing. Let's talk a little bit about glass. I started the conversation today talking about why is there such a big difference in price between manufacturers and models. A lot of that has to do with the quality of the glass. The more expensive pairs use higher density glass. Oftentimes you'll hear the expression HD glass or UHD glass. In the world of optics, HD means high density, not high definition. When we're thinking of electronics like stereo equipment or TVs, when you say HD, that's high definition. But with optics, it's high density. Okay, so in my opinion, you would want a binocular that had at least HD glass, because that's going to improve the image quality, the clarity, resolution, sharpness of the image. The other thing that is affected by the quality of the glass is what's called color fringing. Oftentimes, when you look through the center of your binoculars, where it is most in focus is in the center. But sometimes as you move to the outside edge of the image that you're looking at, you start to get either color fringing on the outside edge, or you will get a little fuzziness or blurriness on the outside edge. And so the better the quality of the glass, the better the image quality from edge to edge. That's called edge-to-edge clarity. Some of you may know this, but a couple years ago, Swarovski's introduced a new model of their EL line, and they called it SwaroVision. And what they did is they added 2 additional field flattening lenses internally that improved the edge-to-edge clarity. So it was crisp all the way across your field of view. So the lower the quality of the binocular, the less image quality you'll have edge-to-edge. The higher the quality of the binocular, the better the edge-to-edge clarity will be. One of the things that I find sometimes when people buy binoculars, particularly if they spend a lot of money, is they're maybe afraid to use them. They're like, it's an investment and they want to baby them and they want to be careful with them. And while I respect the need to be careful with them, I think it's important to realize that binoculars are designed to be used, and that you shouldn't baby them. Binoculars nowadays, they're fog proof, they're waterproof, they're submersible. If they get wet, it doesn't matter. Most binoculars now have amazing warranties. For example, the Vortex line, their warranty is unique in the industry. It's an unconditional, unlimited, no fault, lifetime warranty. And it's a no fault, meaning no matter the cause. Even if you dropped it and your binoculars broke, it's covered for life. And with their warranty, you can send it back. If they can't repair it, they will replace it for free. If they can repair it, they'll repair it. And so, you know, when you buy binoculars, you want to make sure that you're buying a brand that has a good warranty as well, because binoculars should be used and not babied. Same with getting them wet. I know sometimes people are worried about taking them out under different weather conditions. They use O-ring technology in binoculars. Literally, you can take, this is a pair of Swarovski's, but you could do it with Vortex too. You can take these in the shower and wash them off, or you could run them under the kitchen sink and wash them off. It's not going to hurt them in any way. So I think it's important to have that confidence in your equipment that you're not going to hurt them, that you can use them and enjoy them fully. One of the things that makes binoculars fog-proof is in the construction process, the assembly process. When they're putting the binocular together, they purge out the atmospheric air that would normally be internally inside the binocular, and they replace it with an inert gas. Typically, it's going to be either nitrogen for less expensive binoculars or argon for more expensive binoculars. And by having argon, an inert gas, inside your binoculars, that will make it so it cannot fog internally because there's no moisture inside your binocular. If you've had an older pair of binocular, you've probably experienced where they start to fog internally. And sometimes I've even seen old pair of binoculars people have, they got like mold on the inside because moisture's gotten in there and there's bacteria in there, and they pretty much become worthless at that point. You really can't use them. So these are waterproof, they're fog proof, and you're going to have unsurpassed use under any condition. I'm looking at my notes, so I make sure I cover all the different topics that I want to discuss today. Let's talk a little bit about weight and size and ergonomics. A lot of times we get customers that come in and their initial response is, I want a small pair of binoculars. And, you know, and a lot of times it's due to travel. They're saying, oh, I'm going on a trip and I don't have a lot of room in my luggage and I just want a small pair of binoculars. And honestly, I try to discourage people from that mindset, because oftentimes when you have a small pair of binoculars, that means that you have a small objective lens, which means you're not gathering a lot of light. And under different light conditions, it might not be adequate. I personally probably wouldn't recommend going smaller than a 32 millimeter objective lens for most uses. We do sell some that are smaller than 32. So for example, Swarovski makes this little tiny compact pair that has a dual hinge. It's got hinges on both sides, and it gets very compact. You can literally just slip that into your pocket, into your purse. And if you're going to a concert or if you're going to an opera or something, these would be amazing opera glasses. But I think when you have a lighter pair of binoculars, I think it's harder to hold steady just because it's not very substantial. It's just kind of dainty. So sometimes a larger pair of binoculars is easier to hold steady, and because it has the larger objective lens, it gathers more light, certainly. So again, you have to determine what works best for you. If weight is a concern, I would strongly recommend, if you don't currently use a harness strap, that instead of using a neck strap, that you would use a harness strap. A harness strap distributes the weight over your shoulders and does not put it on your neck. It also has elasticity, so that strap holds that binocular snug to your chest. And unlike a neck strap, so when you're walking, it's not flopping, which a neck strap that just flops, and you end up holding it still with one hand. Whereas the harness strap, you can just let it rest there without holding it, and it's going to be snug against your chest. And that kind of negates the size and the weight if you're concerned with size and weight. Certainly, women's hands are much smaller than a man's hands. One of the things to consider is, can you comfortably reach with your index finger the center focus wheel? If you have a really large pair of binocular, this is a large pair, for example. This is a 18 power, so that's a lot of magnification, with a 56mm objective lens, a very large pair of binoculars. If you have small hands and your hands fit comfortably here, you can't reach the focus wheel comfortably without shifting. And when you have to shift to focus, then you're jiggling the binocular by shifting. And so I think it's important to get a size of binocular where your index finger rests comfortably right on the focus wheel, allowing you to adjust the focus without having to shift your grip on the body of the binocular, okay? I'm gonna go back to the objective lens size just for a minute because I want you to understand the impact it has. Every time you increase your objective lens size, you're increasing the body size. To accommodate this larger lens, the whole barrel needs to be larger to accommodate the lens at the end of the barrel. So what this does is it adds more size and it adds more weight to your binocular. I mean, when you only have a 25mm lens, obviously you can have a very, very tiny body. And so that's another issue to consider when you're looking at buying a pair, is that if light gathering is really important to you, and you say, you know what, I just want to be able to gather as much light as I can, then you have to accept the fact then you're going to get a larger and a heavier pair of binoculars. I have found that the world of binoculars is a world of trade-offs. You have to be able to compromise some features in order to achieve the maximum of other features. We already talked about magnification. If you say, I want the maximum magnification, then you have to compromise on light gathering and on steadiness, because you can't have it both ways, because every time you increase magnification, you lose light. Every time you increase magnification, you increase jiggle factor. And so those are opposing principles. And so you kind of have to make a decision. Well, what's more important to me? Is magnification more important? Is weight and size more important? Just things to consider. Where you bird, like I already mentioned, is important too. Like here in Prescott, where I live, we have several man-made lakes. We have a lot of reservoirs, so we have a lot of waterfowl in winter. Right now, we've got a couple pelicans here in Prescott, which we're enjoying. And we have several tundra swans that have been here for several weeks that we're enjoying, along with Ross's geese, and a lot of other birds. The point I'm trying to make is, if you do a lot of water shoreline birding, it's different than terrestrial birding. If you're on land and you see a bird in the distance and you only have 8 power, and that's just not enough magnification to see that bird well, what can you do? Well, you can walk closer because you're on land. But if you're at the shoreline and you have 8 power binocular, you can't walk closer unless you can walk on water. And so by increasing your magnification, you're bringing that bird to you instead of you going to that bird. So again, those are just different thoughts and different considerations as you look at the features that different binoculars have. So I want to shift gears a little bit. I'm using this back counter to kind of stage products, and I want to talk about some of the products that have come out this year, some of the newer features and new designs. One of the things that's interesting about optics is it's constantly changing. Fascinating. A lot of our customers have old pairs of binoculars, what we would call a poro prism design. I'm going to step away from the screen just for a minute to grab one. So this is an example of an older model, an older pair of binoculars. And you can see how your ocular lens and your objective lens, they don't line up, okay? It's kind of offset. So this is called a poro prism. This style of older binocular does not have a very generous close focus. So if you want to focus on something really close, these don't do that. So oftentimes you'll find if you're looking at something close, you actually have to back up in order to get that object in focus because you're too close to it. So that's one of the drawbacks of an old poro prism design. Another thing that's interesting about poro prism is because the prisms internally are offset, they can get knocked out of alignment fairly easily if the binoculars get dropped or if they get jarred. The newer designed binoculars use a straight through approach. You'll see that your ocular lens and your objective lens are perfect alignment. They're not offset. This allows for close focus, and it also allows for more hardiness. It can be dropped and it's still going to be intact. You're not going to be able to knock your prisms out of alignment very easily. These are much more durable with a straight prism configuration. This is called a roof prism, R-O-O-F, roof prism versus poro prism. So you might look at your pair of binoculars and say, okay, do I have an older model of the poro prism or my pair roof prism? If they're roof prism, I think that's a good step. That's a really, really good step. So binocular design continues to evolve, particularly in the world of glass, in the manufacturing of glass, and lens coatings. Lens coatings are put on the surfaces of the glass to aid in the transmission of light. The natural principle of light when it hits glass is it reflects. We all have that experience. We're driving down the road and the car in front of us, the sun's like bouncing off their back window and it's blinding us. So what do? Well, glass, it gets coated with proprietary ingredients, multiple layers of this ingredient to aid in the transmission of the light through the glass instead of hitting the glass and reflecting off. So that's one of the things that affects the price of binoculars. The better the lens coatings, and if it's multi-coated, then that drives the price up, but it delivers more light to your pupil in the long run. So that's an important feature. This year, Swarovski, I'm just going to touch on Swarovski for a few minutes. They have come out with several new products. One which is particularly interesting. You'll notice, if you can see this well, this has a singular ocular lens. There's only one lens. But you'll also notice it has two lenses on the other end. Now, only one of those is an objective lens. The other one is a camera lens. This product came out earlier this year, and it is called a digital guide, or DG for short. The digital guide is an electronic binocular and camera in one. It uses apps on your phone as well as internally inside of this device, where it uses Bluetooth technology to communicate the information you're capturing on the digital guide through photography. It transmits that data to your cell phone. So obviously you're going to be out in the field with your cell phone. Prior to using the digital guide, you will have already downloaded onto your phone the Merlin Bird ID app and a Swarovski app, so that they will be compatible and work together. The way this digital guide works is it allows you to take photographs, digital photographs of birds you're seeing in the field, And then, kind of like facial recognition technology, it takes the image that you've photographed and it compares your image to the images in the Merlin app, and it will identify the bird that you have photographed. So it's really amazing technology. You know, we've been asked for years, do any of the binoculars you sell take pictures? Well, the answer is yes. This absolutely takes pictures. And also has a USB port, so you can download your pictures onto your computer. You can share your pictures. Just like once you've got it on your computer, you can do anything, you know, you can do Photoshop or whatever you want with your pictures. So this is new cutting edge technology from Swarovski this year. So I want to make you aware of the digital guide. Another thing that has happened this year is Swarovski has come out with a new line of binoculars. I feel, as a hardcore birder, a field birder, that most serious birders have Swarovskis. I mean, that's kind of the go-to pair of binoculars. Certainly, some people have Leicas, some people have Zeiss, there's Minoltas, certainly there's Vortex, but a lot of serious birders eventually end up to the point where they get a pair of Swarovskis. Well, the standard birding binocular for Swarovski for the last 21 years has been what's called the EL. The EL is their high-end model. It came in probably 6 different versions. Well, just in September, a couple months ago, Swarovski came out with a brand new model called an NL. The NL is taking the binocular, or the EL, to a new height, a new level. I have one in the store. When they unveiled this product back in July, we ordered 9 pair that day. So far, we've only gotten in 6 or 7 pair. We haven't even gotten in our original order because they're in such high demand. But one of the things that's unique is that they've got like an hourglass design on the body, which I really like. It makes it more compact. It's more ergonomically comfortable. It's got an open hinge, so you can kind of wrap your fingers around the barrel, and the focus wheel is right there. It's comfortable to reach because the barrel is sleek and small. It's not fat. They're only making this pair in 3 different models. They make an 8x42, a 10x42, and a 12x42. So they're not making anything with a larger objective lens than 42. They're not making anything smaller, like a 32. For years, we have found that the go-to pair of binoculars, pardon me, I gotta look at my countertop here. The go-to pair of binoculars for a lot of serious birders has been the EL32, but they're not making the NL in a 32. They're only making it in a 42. And so you can kind of see the difference in the size of the objective lenses on the 42. So that 42 is going to deliver more light because it's larger under all circumstances, all conditions. One of the unique features, and I hope you can see this right here, it's a forehead rest. And I just think that's brilliant. I don't know why somebody didn't think of that earlier. So when you're using this pair of binoculars, it's adjustable, again, for different people's facial structure. But when you put the binocular up to your eye, this forehead rest will rest directly on your forehead and increase the stability for you as you're using the binocular. Because sometimes people free hold it. They don't rest the ocular lenses on their ocular bone, which I recommend for stability. But this forehead rest is a simple but unique feature that increases the stability of the image that you're looking at. So that's also new with the NL. And it does have the swirl vision, which means it has the edge-to-edge clarity that the ELs are famous for. So this is the new top of the line in the Swarovski. Swarovski has also come out this year with a new objective lens for their spotting scopes. And we haven't talked about spotting scopes yet, but we need to do that. Most manufacturers of spotting scopes create a scope that is all one piece. The body and the eyepiece is typically one piece. However, Swarovski makes what's called a modular setup, and I'm going to show that to you here right now. So for example, this is a 65 millimeter objective body. This is the body of the scope. This is an eyepiece, okay? And you can mix and match eyepieces and bodies. So for example, I can put this together and create a scope that is a straight scope with a 65 millimeter eyepiece, okay? Or I could say, gee, you know, I really prefer an angled eyepiece. So I've got one right here. It's already put together, but I can mix and match. I can say, well, let's take this lens off and let's put it with the 65. And now I have a fairly compact 65 millimeter angled eyepiece Swarovski scope. So just like binoculars, this objective lens is critical for light gathering. We already talked about how the higher the magnification, the less light you gather. Well, we know that scopes are variable. The magnification is variable. So as you increase the magnification on your spotting scope, you're decreasing the amount of light every single time you go up in magnification. Well, the way to offset that is to increase the size of your objective lens. For many years, the largest objective lens size available has been a 95 millimeter. And that has just recently changed. Just in about the last month or two, Swarovski came out with a 115 millimeter objective lens. Unfortunately, I don't have one to show you today. These new products that they've been introducing this year are in such high demand that we have a waiting list for them. So when the product comes in, it's usually sold the same day. We call the person who's first on the waiting list and say, hey, we got 115 millimeter in. They're like, great, I'll be in today, pick it up, and it's gone the same day it came in. I wish I could show it to you. It's very impressive. I personally own a 95. I've had a 95 for several years. But the fascinating thing, when you jump from a 95 millimeter objective lens to 115 millimeter objective lens, you gather 43% more light with that higher objective lens. Now, of course, it's bigger and it's heavier. There's those trade-offs again. We talked about how optics are a world of trade-offs, but it's available. We've talked about some of the new products that Swarovski's come out with. I know we've got to have question and answer here in a minute, so I'm just going to wrap up with new products from Vortex. The most recent line of new products from Vortex has been what's called UHD instead of HD. So HD is high density, UHD is ultra high density. So that's even better quality glass. So Swarovski has come out with a new line of UHD razors. And I just want to make you aware of that. They're similar in price to some of the low-end Swarovskis, about $1,500, $1,600. So I'll just talk prices real quick. Most Vortex products, they'll start around 200, go up to about 1,500. Swarovski start around 800 and go up to about 3,000 now with the NLs. Again, I'm going to give you my phone number and then we'll open up to questions and answers. Our time is almost up already, which is amazing. It's gone by so fast. I hope you've learned something today. The store line for Jay's Bird Barn is 928-443-5900. My name is Eric, and I own Jay's Bird Barn. I get called Jay a lot, but it's actually Eric. If for any reason I'm not available to take your call, my store manager, his name is Ryan, and he is an optics guru. He's very, very intelligent on optics, knows his stuff. And I have a gentleman named Larry that works for me who's also excellent with optics. So you don't need to talk to me if I'm not available. You can talk to Larry or Ryan as well. I think that's it for the presentation. So why don't we go to question and answer, and Mary and Chris, if you'll help me with that.
Certainly will, Eric, and thank you very much for a fabulous presentation. Very good indeed.
Thank you.
I have one quick question.
Wonderful.
One quick question for you. Obviously, especially if you're spending a large amount of money on optical equipment, you want to keep it at its best. Could you give us just a few words on the do's and don'ts of cleaning optical equipment, particularly the lenses?
Sure. I personally have purchased from Walmart. I don't shop at Walmart very often, but they sell in their optical department the packets with 100 of the little wet wipes that are in little foil packs. You can just tear it open and there's a little wet wipe in there and you can clean your lenses. So I use those on my lenses a lot. I also run my binoculars under the sink. I literally do that. I recently let somebody borrow my wife's pair of Swarovskis, and when I brought them back, she says, I want them washed. It's like, okay. So I got soap, and I use dish soap for the body, not for the lenses, but I literally ran them under the kitchen sink under just warm water, not hot water, not cold water, use dish soap to clean the body really well. And then once I dried off the body, then I cleaned the lenses with that Zeiss lens cleaning wipe. And then I also use microfiber lens cleaning cloths. And I also use liquid. You can put like little drops of liquid on the lens and just use like a chamois motion using a microfiber cloth to clean your lenses.
Oh, interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a question from Patricia Hennigan.
Okay.
And if she'd like to answer that live, ask that live, Patricia, you can turn on your microphone.
Okay, just a quick question. I'm getting back into birding after a lot of years, and I have a single vision. So I wondered if you had any recommendations for that.
That is a great question, Patricia. We didn't talk about binoculars at all. No. Sorry, I got distracted. We just found a purse on the floor. Somebody walked out and dropped it on the floor of the store. We do run into that from time to time, Patricia, where individuals have either a lazy eye, astigmatism, or some visual problem that prevents them from using both eyes with binoculars. We do sell binoculars. I'm not a big fan of binoculars unless it's necessary. For example, we do get people who come in and say, when I use binoculars, I only use one eye anyways, so they want to get a binocular. The problem is we only carry binoculars in the Vortex line, and the most expensive binocular we sell is $109. Well, that's an indication of quality. If it's only $109, then how good is the quality of the lenses? So my opinion for you is, plus it's harder to hold steady. It's very hard to hand hold a small ocular device with one hand. So my advice to you is I would still buy binoculars, even if you only use one eye, so that you can get the quality of the lenses that you want, the quality of the glass, the quality of the lenses, and that you have the stability to hold that binocular steady when you're looking at images. Because they don't make high-end binoculars. They make just entry-level pairs of binoculars. And I don't think you'd be happy with the image quality. And if you were able to use both eyes, what pair of binocular would you buy, is my question. And then buy that, because you want that same image quality for one eye as you would want for two eyes. Don't settle for poorer quality just because you can only use one eye. Buy just as if you were going to use both eyes.
Okay,
I hope that's helpful.
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
That makes sense. I do have a pair of Vortex. I have a Vortex binocular. I'm very unhappy with it. So, okay. Yeah, that's good. Very helpful. Thank you.
Great question. Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Patricia.
So Eric, not all of us are lucky enough to have a fabulous store like yours close to us. So if we want to buy optical equipment, how advisable is it to buy it online without ever actually trying it out?
I would be very cautious. We get people who come in here and they do price shopping, they'll compare, or they'll use our product to look at it and then they'll go home and buy it online, like through Amazon or something like that, or B&H Photo or different Adorama.com. I think, number one, we appreciate it when people support a family-owned business, a bricks and mortar store, and are shopping online. Our return policy is very generous. Our loan policy is even more generous. And this is a true story. You might think I'm crazy, but it happens all the time. When people come in the store and they're having a hard time deciding between one pair and another, guess what we do? We say, take them home. We don't know their name. We don't know where they live. We don't ask for a credit card. We trust people. And we just say, take them home, try them, and bring them back when you're done. And we do that all the time with Swarovskis, with Vortex, we don't care. And so, if you wanted to field test a pair, we'd be happy to mail you a pair, no obligation. We'll pay the shipping out, you pay the shipping back. If you decide you want to keep it, then you can just send us a check. We prefer to do checks because if we have to take a credit card over the phone, because the credit card is not present, they charge us a higher processing rate because it's higher risk, because anybody could call you over the phone and say, hey, I want to buy a pair of binoculars and here's my credit card. Well, you don't know if that credit card's stolen because you don't know that person. And so we prefer checks over a credit card personally, and most people are happy to do that because we work with them and they work with us. But if anybody wants to field test a pair, call us up. We'll send you a pair. You can try it out. No obligation.
Wow.
That sounds great. Well, that's what happens with my Vortex, and I love them.
Good. Well, we sell a lot of Vortex. We sell a lot of Swarovskis. I have to do a little commercial because I'm proud of it, but you can see this probably. And there's another one here. But 2 years in a row now, Jay's Bird Barn in Little Old Prescott, Arizona has been named the Western Nature Dealer of the Year for Swarovski Optics.
That's awesome.
And the Western region covers California, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Canada, Nevada. And Jay's Bird Barn has won that award 2 years in a row, which says a lot about our little business, that we have a reputation for service, knowledge, customer service.
That's fantastic.
Very well deserved, Eric.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Sandra. Sandy, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. Hi, Eric. I
Hi,
have
Sandra.
I have a Swarovski EL, and it looks inside my ocular lens that there's I just kind of looks like mold, but I don't know if it is or not. I could unscrew the ocular lens, and I've done that and cleaned as much as I could.
Okay.
But below the lens, it looks a little moldy.
Okay. So it's possible, Sandra, that somehow there's been a breach in the O-ring technology, which has allowed atmospheric air into the chamber of the binocular, which is normally purged and only has the argon. So in that situation, I would suggest that you probably send it back. Where do you live?
Springfield, Virginia.
Oh, you're a long ways away.
Oh yeah.
I have kids that live in Herndon, if you know where Herndon is.
Very close.
Okay, very good. So obviously Swarovskis are made in Austria, but they have a North American headquarters, which is not far from where you live. It's in Rhode Island. And so what I would do is call the 1-800 number for Swarovskis, and they will give you what's called an SO number, SO meaning service order number. All you do is just mail it to them and put on the outside of the box and on the inside of the box that service order number that they gave you. So that way, when that box hits their door, they go, oh yeah, we know about this pair. We know what the problem is. It gets into the line for service. And then they will take it apart to examine if there has been a breach in that O-ring technology. They'll repair it, replace it, fix it, send it back to you. And I am confident there will be absolutely no charge.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you need a loaner pair while your binoculars are gone, we'd be happy to send you a loaner pair that you could use while your pair are not available to you. If you're like me, I can't live without my binoculars for more than a day or two. And if, when you send them in, you got to expect that they're going to be gone 4 to 6 weeks just because they're probably getting in, 50, 60 pair a day, and they're getting out 50 or 60 pair a day. But there's always going to be a little bit of a backlog in the turnaround time. So if you need a loaner pair, let us know. We'll send you one.
That's awesome. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah, Eric, many years ago, I actually used to work for Swarovski, and I was lucky enough to go across to Austria to their headquarters and saw their repair center there. And what amazed me most was they were able to have repair and had parts for every model back to the 1940s. That staggered me, it really did. But that just shows how committed they are to having the best product available.
Yeah, their service work is impeccable. Not to knock another brand, maybe I just won't say the name of the brand. I'll share an experience. I was given a pair of binoculars. It was given to me by somebody whose spouse passed away, and they said, we want you to have his binoculars. Well, they weren't Swarovskis, they weren't Vortex. They were older, and they needed service work. And so I sent them back. They went to Germany to be serviced. And they serviced what I identified the problem was, and they sent it back. And when I got them back, they were as filthy as when I sent them in. They didn't clean them or anything. It's like, I was just so shocked because I'm so used to Swarovski and Vortex's service where no matter what condition you send in, it could be filthy. And they'll not only repair it, but they will work it over, give it a tune-up, clean it, and send it back to you like mint condition. And I got these binoculars back, and they were as filthy as the day I sent them in. It's like, oh my gosh, they didn't even clean them, not even the lenses. So it shocked me. So, I mean, both Vortex and Swarovski have an impeccable reputation for customer service and warranty work. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any more questions?
I think we've answered everyone's questions. We're getting
Okay.
great feedback from people.
Well, thank you very much,
you.
indeed, Eric. It's been lovely to see you in your natural setting.
Yeah, I live here.
A lot of wonderful tips and nice little bits of wisdom you've passed on to us. I'm sure we've all learned something. So
Thank you.
thank you very much indeed. If any of you came in late to this talk, it has been recorded, and probably by tomorrow it will be available to be watched again, or for the first time if you missed out, on the Southwest Wings website, which is www.swwings.org. So look out on that, and there'll be a link there for you to be able to view the whole talk again and hear Eric's wonderful words of wisdom.
Yes. Thanks
Well,
so
thank you.
much, Eric. And everybody be well and have a wonderful holiday season. And thank you very much for joining us.
Our next talk will be coming up on December the 30th. It's going to be Jim Koweek, who's the grassland plant expert. He'll be talking about grassland plant ID made easy. So that's on Wednesday, December the 30th, 11 a.m. Arizona time as usual.
Yes.
So
Right.
thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks, Eric.
Have a wonderful
Thank
holiday
you.
season, and hope to
Thank
see
you.
you all again soon.
We're going to go out now.
Bye.
Happy birding, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye
Be
for
well.
now.
Bye.
Bye, Eric.
Bye-bye.